Alright, welcome to another video on how to secure yourself financially. So here what I'm doing is make a quick recap of this beginner guide to financial statement, something that the set.gov made here. And in this website, the main issue is that the basic, which if you're able to read a baseball box score or a or read a nutritional label, you can learn to read the basic part of financial statement. And if you can also know how to apply for a loan or you can follow a recipe, you can learn the basic of accounting. And the basic they are difficult. So the TLDR of this, the too long it didn't read, is that financial statement after all they show you the money. Period. Simple. And we have four of them: balance sheets, income statement, cash flow statement, and the statement of the shareholders. So this section will gonna teach us and give some confidence, especially when once we're able to see a set of financial statements so we can make sense of them. It won't train us to be an accountant, so much like a CPA course won't train you to be a cardiac doctor, but however, it can give you this confidence so you can see this set of financial statement and make sense of it. So the first balance or the first financial statement is about the balance sheets. The short summary or the short version is a snapshot of the company assets, liabilities, and shareholders' equity, where the assets are anything that a company owns that has value, whether it is tangible or intangible. Liabilities, obligations that a company have, and shareholders' equity, which is the amount of money if, for example, a company decide to sell off all of their assets and pay off all of its liability, the leftover money belongs to the leftover money belongs to the shareholders equity. So this is generally organized following is the formula of assets are equal to liabilities and shareholders equity, okay, where the first part, which is the assets, is generally listed based on how quickly they can be converted into cash. So you have current assets that can be converted within a year, and non-current assets that will take longer to do that. So for example, on current assets you have inventory, okay, and also you have fixed assets. They are not for sales because it allows your business to run. And when it comes to liabilities, which is generally listed based on their due date, so you have current liabilities, obligations that a company has to pay within a year, or long-term liabilities, as well as the shareholders equity, which shows is the amount of money that a company or the owner of the company invests in the company stocks, plus or minus it is revenue or losses since inception. So then I look at the income statement that after all this show you if a company is profitable, okay, if that actually makes some revenue. So the bottom line of this statement show you that, and you can think of this as a set of stairs that you start from the top with the total amount of revenue, and then you go down each step and make a deduction associated with earning that revenue. Okay, so the bottom line of this, or at the bottom of the stair, you now know if a company made a profit or not. So, general and broadly speaking, here you start with the total revenue, then you go down to that, you make a deduction associated with that, which is merchandise returns or in discounts. Okay, so you reach to the net revenue, and then you're going to deduct things like the cost of sales. Again, this is just broadly speaking because there's also another uh, expense you have to deduct. But right after the net revenue, you deduct is the cost of revenue, which indicates how much money a company is paying to produce the good and service. You reach then to the uh, net. Here is the net profit, okay, or the gross profit in this case, the gross profit, and then you deduct things like operating expense, such as marketing, uh, administrating salaries, the costs associated with developing new products. So you can bind this with the cost of sales because there is no direct correlation. And after all, these are expense that you need to deduct from this. Also, you need to deduct things like the amortization and depreciation, and then you reach to the operating expense before interest and income taxes. So the interests are, well, money that a company owns or lends, where it can increase or decrease the amount of revenue it receives. And then you reach to the operating expense or operating profits before income taxes, so money that you owns to the government. And at the bottom line, you see if a company actually made profit or not. And then the third financial statement is the cash flow. So the cash flow report is the company's inflow and outflow of cash. And this is very important because company needs to have cash on hand so thus they can purchase assets or pay its expense. So it reviews some information from the balance sheet and the income statement, and the bottom line of the cash flow statement show the net increase or decrease in cash. So this is generally uh, organized on one of these type of activities. So the cash flow is, the cash flow statements review the cash flow from one of these activities: operating, okay, investing, and financing activity. And this is something very, very important to understand, because even though you see yourself as a business, well, this is how you can starting to develop a sense of that. Okay. Uh, so with this, all right, with the cash flow statement. So the first part of this cash flow statement is the operating activities. So what it does is to look at the income statement and conciliate with the total amount of cash that was used or received from operating assets or liabilities. So the most common operating activities are operating assets and operating liabilities, where the first we have accounts receivable, inventory, prepay expense, so money that a company incur for good and service that will be received, such as premium insurance, whether it's home or vehicle, as well as health for medical coverage, or liabilities in the case of lawsuits, or uh, yeah, in the case of lawsuits, or Jesus, in the case of lawsuits, yeah, like liabilities, disabilities, as well as the long-term care, such as home health care or nurse home care. Another most common operating assets are investment in affiliates, where here the whole point of this is to earn a return or gain some competitive advantage once you invest in the another company's stocks. So you have things like joint ventures. So Post Malone and Crocs, they do that. This is very, very interesting. Post Malone, so Post Malone and Crocs do a joint venture. Okay. And this is just a partnership between the two or more companies to undertake specific business activities. Uh, this is actually very, very ugly, by the way. It's like, why would you do this or wear this in your normal day, um, unless you're in your house, okay? But I wouldn't use this outside of the house. Um, who knows, my friend? Who knows? Maybe yes, but so the price, and also you can see the price history from 1 year. Holy hell! Is this for real, nigga? So it started as $80 and then skyrocketing. Due to the inflation, I think. Price history. So okay, this is also a way to measure its inflation. Okay, now has double the price. So yeah, but this is a joint venture. Okay, and also I look at equity investments, where this is when a company purchases significant amount of stake into the another company stocks to potentially raise its voice and influence in the another company management decisions. So things like Berkshire, Berkshire, Berkshire Hathaway here. So Berkshire Hathaway, which is a holding company led by Warren Buffett, which this holding company, after all, they engage with business activity through owning stocks. So Berkshire Hathaway invests in a variety of sectors like energy, retail, and real estate. Also, you have here SoftBank, which is a Japanese conglomerate like this. It's a Japanese multinational, or it's a Japanese conglomerate holding company, okay, that invests primarily in technology companies such as Uber, Airbnb, WeWork, you get it, right? Uh, Alphabet, okay, where now Alphabet from Google. Okay, so the Alphabet is the parent company of Google that invests again in primarily in a variety of technology companies. Mhm. So that invests in a variety of technology companies through its venture capital arm. So Google Ventures. So if you look at this, Google Ventures, okay, through this. So Google Venture Management Company LLC is a venture capital investment arm of Alphabet Inc. founded by Bill Maris, that provides seeds, ventures, and growth stage funding for to technology companies. Founded as Google Ventures in 2009, the first as operating independently of Google. Alphabet search and advertisements behemoth. Behemoth. It's like a demon. Yeah. Behemoth. It's like behemoth. Even the name they use to describe that colossal, okay, alphabet search and advertising behemoth. Holy behemoth and the Leviathan. Behemoth and the Leviathan. From left behemoth on earth, sick in sky, and Leviathan under sea. Mm, they are the same name of all of that demon. Behemoth. So yeah, so the alphabet search and advertising behemoth. So this is an equity investment. Okay, Google Ventures, GitLab, Verge, inventing future treatment for heart disease. This is the first time I navigate to this website. Stripe, empowering millions of business worldwide. Rome, life inside, developing therapies of science. Wonder, moving the world best food to home. Brightline, this is all of the venture capitalists, or the Google Ventures, Bowery, growing sustainable food for the nation, for the future. Air Protein, nourish the world's population, Frontier Teach, harnessing the power of audio for the consumers, building a developer-friendly blockchain, GitLab, powering the future of DevOps. Mm-hmm. Latest from GV. Okay. Interesting. This is the first time that I get in here, right? This is the first time that I get in here. And they're using Knox, my friend, in view. And they're using is Knox and view. And they're using in Contentful to manage their content. Interesting. Headquarters, San Francisco Bay Area. So okay, this is the Google Ventures. Okay, this is part of the Google Ventures, which is an example of equity investment. Okay, also Texas Pacific Group, which is now a private equity. Okay, this is TPG, Texas Pacific Group. It's a private equity that invests primarily in real estate, home health, or healthcare. Again, this is another example of this. The first was founded in 1992 by David Bonderman, James Coulter, and William S. Price III. and winemaker. Raised 50 billion of investors commitments across more than 18 private equity funds. In June 2023, TPG were ranking 6th in Private Equity International PAI 300 ranking of the largest private equity firms in the world. And when you talk about equity, is ownership. Okay, equity firms is ownership. Firm that has ownership on others areas. Okay, is the amount of ownership that this firm has over other sectors, in a variety of sectors. Private equity funds, TPG has historically relied primarily on private equity funds, pools of committing capital from pension funds. Exactly, this is where they get their money from pension funds, insurance companies, endowments, fund of funds, high net worth individuals, sovereign wealth funds or bonds, and from other institutional investors. Mhm. Okay, okay. So when I talk about equity here, this is also important here. Equity is an ownership interest in a property that may offset by debts or other liabilities. Equity is a measure of accounting purpose by subtracting liabilities from the value of the asset owned. So the equity is a measure for accounting purpose by subtracting, according to Investopedia. Okay, but if I look at the equity in Investopedia, so the amount of money that will be returned to a company shareholder if all of the assets were liquidated and all of the company debt was paid off in the case of liquidation. Okay, but after all, equity, okay, is an ownership. So the thing of equity is ownership. Ownership interest in property that may be offset by debt or other liabilities. So equity is a measure for accounting purpose by subtracting liabilities from the value of the assets owned. So for example, if someone owns a car worth $24,000 and owes 10,000 of the loan used to buy the car, the difference of 14,000 is equity. Is the real value from this or the equity, right? Is the value of the asset owned. Equity and equality. So the state of quality of being used and fair, something that is just and fair. And in finance, you have a different in uh, in finance you have a different meaning here. But after all, in the accounting, that's what it means to. Okay, equity is is how ownership you have in a property minus its liabilities. So, in other words, so yeah, so this TBG, this private equity firm, after all, it was ranked. So in June 2023, TPGS was ranked sixth in Private Equity International. In Private Equity International, is a global insight analysis and data provider for the private equity industry, with a core focus on relationship between investors and fund managers. Interesting. Very, very interesting. But again, this is one example of equity investment. Again, one of the type of investment in affiliates that you have joint ventures, equity investment, limited partnership, where now a company can purchase significant amount of the another limited partnership that can influence that in return you can set the so that in return with this limited partnership, okay, which is ChatGPT, which is something that I asked for, and this limited partner. So with this limited partnership, mhm, with this limited partnership, which is something that I asked also to. So what is a limited partnership? Pros and cons. A partnership made up of two or more partners, in which the general partners oversee the rounds. Uh, but so when I look at these operating activities, specifically at the equity investment like this, so limited partnerships, a company may invest in a limited partnership that provide a share of ownership and control over the partnership assets and operations. That's what happened in this limited partnership. The other is associates. This is something important to understand this limited partnership. So anytime you see an LP, is there is a company that owns or there is a company that purchase or invest in this LP in return of a share of ownership and control over the partnership assets and operations. So essentially, it's somewhat like a puppet. This LP, then you get the associate, where now a investor or company usually owns 20 to 50% of the voting share. So it has significant influence, but not total control. And the subsidiaries are typically not classified as investments in affiliates. They are similar in that a company owns and controlling stake in the another company, this subsidiary. Again, this is just example of most common operating assets. Investment in affiliates. Also, another example of common assets are intangible assets, such as patent, exclusive right to provide, creators or inventors, so they can manufacture, distribute, and sell their invention over a period of time. For example, you have the maglev, GPS, electronic device, or AKA the iPhone, as well as the Crisp gene editing. Okay. So there is an interesting website called Popular Mechanics, where it mentioned the 50 famous patents that changed the world, like this. It mentioned 50 patents that changed the world. So the maglev of this electromagnetic inductive suspension and stabilization system for ground vehicle, issued in 1969, the same year as the internet or ARPANET. The iPhone issued in 2007. The GPS, this global positioning system, so navigation system using passive ranging techniques, as their patent name suggests, whereas the patent name call, issued in 1974 here. In the Chris Gene Editing issue 2014, then you get the idea. The graphene is also, as well, the graphene, the Bluetooth, peer-to-peer information exchange for mobile communication device. Mm. This is also interesting. When this was issued, Jab Hastings invented Bluetooth in 1994, allowing electronic devices in close proximity to connect to each other using low-power, ultra-high frequency radio wave. Hastings has drafted multiple patents related to Bluetooth, but they have been stymied by lawsuits and patent trolls. This 2013 patent describes how the technology can be used to transmit GPS data. The system uses small computer chips implanted in devices that serve as mini radios and run the software needed to connect each other. The device pair over a short-range network known as Piconet. Piconet. Interesting. The technology is used in almost every handheld device today, including headphones, camera, and smart thermostat. Piconet. Interesting. From the Bluetooth. Is an ad hoc network that links a wireless user groups of devices using Bluetooth technology protocols. A Piconet consists of two or more devices occupying the same physical channel, synchronized to a common clock and hopping sequence. It allows one master device to interconnect with up to 7 active slave devices. Up to 255 further slave devices can be inactive or parked, which the master device can bring into active status at a time, but an active station must go into the park first. Some examples of Piconet include cell phones connected to a computer. Okay, so what happened here when you connect to a Bluetooth is you're creating is a Piconet. You're creating is a network of wireless user groups. A laptop and Bluetooth enable digital cameras or several PDA that are connected to each other. A group of devices are connected via Bluetooth technology in an ad hoc fashion. A Piconet starts with 2 connected devices and may grow to 8 connected devices. Internet and interesting. Piconet range varies according to the class of Bluetooth device. Data transfer rate vary between 200 and 200 kilobits, 200 and 2100 kilobits per second. Because the Bluetooth system hops over 79 channels, the probability of interfering with another Bluetooth system is less than 1.5%. This allows several Bluetooth Piconets to operate in the same area at the same time with minimal interference. Minimal, but there's still an interference. Interesting. Okay. 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 Solar panel. Third generation wireless mobile telecommunication. Mobile internet access. Virtual reality. Okay, this is very interesting, by the way. The first generation of wireless mobile telecommunication technology made analog cellular phones possible. The second supported digital cell phones, but it was 3G, starting with the Universal Mobile Telecommunication System. Universal Mobile Telecommunication System that transformed the device we carry with us every day. 3G connects cell phones to GPS and the Internet, as outlined in this 2003 patent. It made video calling and streaming possible on handheld device. The improvement to the network made with 4G infrastructure a decade later have continued to transform your cell phone, turning into a wallet, personal assistant, and entertainment device. This mobile internet access, the the Universal Mobile Telecommunication System, mm, is a third generation mobile cellular system for network based on GSM standard. Global system Global system for mobile communication. Interesting. But this is a mobile cellular system for network based on GSM standard. Okay. So this is a system UMTS for based on this standard. Ah, okay. Okay. hmm WCDMI, UMTS base station at the root of a building. Mm, Technology highlight. Hey, what the? It doesn't history. The people of Republic of China formally announced that TD-SCDMI is the country standard of 3G mobile communication. Frequency bands deployment. In Nicaragua. Unlicensed UMDS TDD comparison. Radio access network and core network. Spectrum allocation. Interoperability and global roaming. Migrating from GSM to GPRS. Okay, to UMTS. From a GSM and GPRS network, the following network: Global System Mobile for mobile communication. Okay. Problem and issues, security issues. Mhm. Other non-UMTS Universal Mobile Universal Mobile T System. Mm, High speed package access. Okay, but this is for mobile communication. Okay, and non-UMTS 3G and 4G standards. So they have to fall back to this. Interesting. So are we using this today? These articles need additional citation for verification. 2006. Okay. Mhm. Universal Mobile Telecommunication System. And what is the difference between GSM, UMT, and LLT? These are standards. Okay. Interesting. hmm That's also interesting, by the way. That's also very, very interesting. You need more citations. Universal Mobile Telecommunication System. Yeah, Universal Mobile Telecommunication System. Application streaming and downloading, video conference, fast internet, mobile e-commerce, remote logging, background class applications, multimedia messaging, FTP, so file transfer protocol assets, mobile entertainment games. Okay, advantage of UMTS. Disadvantage of UMTS is more expensive than GSM. Universal Mobile Telecommunication Systems has poor video experience. Mhm. Okay. Is a 3G successor to the GSM? Okay. But after all, this is the standard GSM Global System for Mobile Communication. The Global System for Mobile Communication is a standard developed by the European Telecommunication Standard. Interesting. Mhm. So what is the current state successor? 3G. Mhm. And then hand data rate for GSM evolution. And 4G succeeding 3G and preceding 5G. Most probability with E2I and EMT at advanced, potential occurring applications. Worldwide interoperability for microwave access and evolve high-speed packet access. Mm. So succeeded the 3G exactly, but after all, it followed the GSM standard. It followed the GSM standard as global system for mobile communication. Global system for global communication. And now we got is the 5G. Okay, it's the first generation standard for broadband cellular network, which cellular phones company began deploying worldwide in 2019, and it is planned successor of the 4G, which provide connectivity to most current cell phones. Like its predecessors, 5G network are cellular network in which the server's area is divided into small geographical areas called cells. But in which the service area is divided into small geographical called areas called cells. A 5G wireless device in a cell communicates by radio waves with a cellular base station via fixed antenna over frequency channels assigned by the base station. The base station terms nodes are connected to switching centers in the telephone network and routers for internet access by high bandwidth optical fiber or wireless backhaul connections, as in other cellular phones. Mhm. Okay. But this is developed by 3G partnership projects. It's best known work in the development of maintaining of GSM, UMTS, the 3G standards. The LTE are related to 4G standards, and the 5G are related to 5G standards. Holy hell. Third generation partnership projects is an umbrella term for a number of standard organizations which develop protocol for mobile telecommunications. 3GPP is a consortium with seven national or regional telecommunication standards. Mm. So you have from Japan, USA, China, Europe, India, South Korea, and another commit from Japan. Market representation partners. Jesus. Okay. Oh my God. This is something very interesting. This is something very, very interesting, especially when you look at the most or the patent. Just to mention a couple patents that changed the world. Okay, you have this maglev for transportation, electromagnetic inductive system and stabilization. So electronic device or electromagnetic, like this electromagnetic inductive system for stabilization. So electromagnetic systems, this is very, very important to know and to remember this, especially in the world that we live right now, the maglev. Holy hell. Magnetic levitation maglev. Okay, so this electromagnetic inductive and suspension system for a ground vehicle, the maglev. The iPhone issued 2007, the GPS, the global positioning system, or as their patent name called, navigation system using satellites with passive ranging techniques, as well as the CRISP gene editing issued 2014, the Bluetooth, and the third generation wireless mobile communication, 3G, right? Issued in 2000, the 3G issued in 2003, or generated in 2003, right? And this is something very important because with the 3GPP, which is an umbrella term for a number of standards organizations, so it is based, so they take care of the development and maintaining of GSM, 2G and 2.5 standards, UMT or 3G standards, LLT, which is a 4G standards and related 4G standards, 5G and air and related 5G standards. Holy hell. Oh my God. Okay. Okay. So knowing these organizations can now can give you a more broad perspective of what's going on and where you're going. All right. Interest. 3GPP, the third generation partnership project. Okay, again, I mentioned this as the pattern because this is very interesting and part of the intangible assets that a company has. Trademark, which are exclusive. So, for example, is design, work, audio that uniquely identify this company from the competition. So, for example, Michael Buffer, and in his famous quote, "Let's get ready to rumble," copyrights, which are exclusive rights to a creator of original works, so they can manufacture and distribute their inventions over a period of time. Trade secrets, which is confidential data that company can use from gain some competitive advantage based on their process, formula, or customer list. Goodwill, which is the brand recognition and awareness. Uh, and another common operating assets like cash and cash equivalents, like money market funds, where these are funds that invest in very short term risk financial instruments such as bank bank acceptance, very short term debt issued by banks, certificate of deposits, short term um, or certificate of saving with short term maturity, commercial papers, risky, very short term debt issued by companies. So commercial papers are corporate debt, which is very risky. A repo, this repurchase agreement, very short-term debt issued by governments. And then I look at the most common operating liabilities, okay, such as accounts receivables, accounts receivables, prepay expense, accrue expense. Accounts receivable, accrue expense, defer revenue, short-term borrowings, notes payable, income tax payable, as well as warranty obligations. And then, with that, at least to mention, is the most common examples. So the cash flow, after all, it review each one of those aspects, okay, and conciliate that with the net income from the income statement. So the way it does this is by first look at the net income and conciliate with the total amount of cash that was used or perceived from operating activities, and the total amount of it conciliates the net income with the non-cash items that affect the income statement. Items that affect the income statement where there is no cash transaction involved, such as amortization and depreciation, as well as the stock-based compensation. And also, another thing that it does, is operating activities, is to analyze the total amount of cash that was used or perceived from other operating activities. Okay. So then I look at the investing activities, where this is generally involved is the purchase or sale of long-term assets such as property, equipment, plant, intangible assets, investment, improve or leasehold improvement. So For example, if a company decides to buy an equipment, so that activity is registered as a cash outflow. Okay, but if a company decides to sell some of its patent or issue a license to a patent, that activity is registered as a cash inflow because cash was used or cash was perceived from that. Okay, and then I look at the financing activity, where here the financing activity it involves the company long-term liabilities, obligations, and equity ownership. So this generally involves is raising funds or capital from investors or creditors, repay debt, or distribute dividends. So example of this can be is uh, raise funds from, or in this case is issuing equity, issuing debt, repay the repayment of debt, repayment of debt, um, repurchasing stocks, asking loans, so long-term asset here, long-term liabilities now is the financing activity. Financing activity example like this is like issuing equity, issuing debt, repaying debt, obtaining loans from financial institutions or from financial institutions, banks, or individuals, other companies, payment of dividend, which is a financing activity, repurchasing stocks, and leasing. Okay, so we're now leasing is an agreement that a company provides to another company to use a particular building, equipment, or vehicle. So that company can use that uh, without taking ownership in convertible debt. So once I look at this, okay, and understand that according to Investopedia, the whole point of this financing activity in the cash flow statement is to see how a company raises funds from investors and then pay through capital markets. So if a company is receive most of the cash flow from operating activities, that's a good sign of an investment. However, if a company constantly are raising from taking out of debt or issuing equity or debt, that might be not a good sign of a company. Yeah, that might be not a good sign of a company. This is something useful, especially if you're going to analyze a company based on again, this is more for like a first world problem, okay? But if you want, for example, go into a particularly advantage, you can is look at that company, especially on the finance, if the company is public, okay? You can take a look at the Yahoo Finance, and from there, see what you can learn from their cash flow statement, specifically the financing. And if a company is constantly raising funds from that, or issuing equity or debt, or taking out of or taking, for example, here on the cash flow, taking out of debt, repayment debt, like this. So this is repayment debt. issuance of debt, issuance of capital stock. So if a company is constantly issuing debt, okay, or taking out of debt, issuing of capital stock and issuing debt, that's not a good sign of an investment. Repayment of debt, repurchasing of capital stock. So now if you compare this with, for example, EBM and with another company, another technology company, IBM, please take a look at the financials. Financial, okay, and here I just want to take a look at the Amazon, for example. Can you show that Amazon Inc. here, and take a look at the cash flow statement here. Okay, so when you look at the issuing of debt and repayment of debt, issuing of capital stock, they actually doesn't issue that, or they're not registered that. So even though this might be a good sign of an investment, but if in the case of Coca-Cola, it continuously issuing debt and issuing capital stock. So for example, with here, okay, issuing of capital stock from IBM. When I look at the Amazon financials like this, let's take a look at the cash flow. So capital expenditure, holy hell, and this is issuing of debt, so they rely vastly on that. So they are relying vastly on this. That again, that's not a good metric, but the volume here matters. The volume here matters. Okay. So once I look at that, okay, an understanding is the cash flow statement. Okay, so take a look at the operating activities, the financing activities, and investing activities, so operating activities, investing and financing. Okay, so then I look at read the footnotes. Very, very, very important, because it have with additional information that here are some highlights. Significant accounting policy and practice. Okay, so significant accounting policy and practice. So companies are required to disclose it is accounting practice. So what are the principles that they are following and applying? And there are two standards, two principles. You have GAAP, generally accepted accounting principles, and the international financial reporting standard. Okay, so this act as a set of principles, whereas GAAP are rules that all accountants follow. Note that all accounted follow. Also the income taxes. So the footnote provides more detailed information about the company current and deferred income, as well as breakdown in levels like the federal, state, city, and or local, in foreign taxes, pension plans, and other retirement programs. So the footnote discusses the company's pension plans and other retirements or post-employment benefits. So the notes contained specific information about the asset and cost of this program and indicate whether and how much the plans are over or underfunded, as well as the stock options. The note also contains information about stock options granted to officers and employees, including the method of accounting for stock-based compensation and the effect of the method on report results. So with that, that'll be all for this video. Take care. Bye bye.